Okay guys, so we're going to look here at NVLX the morning of the panic, and right now the chart you can see is the chart from the day before. So we're about to open up here, and the stock has gapped up very nicely up to 39.3, and that is above the previous closing price of 36.5. So out of the gate here, I'm curious to see how the stock reacts to 40, if it can get some kind of a spike going, because I was long overnight the stock. So the action opens up here, stock starts to print. Immediately a couple more market makers jump onto the ask here at 39.3. And the bidders are quickly getting chipped away. Suddenly we're 4 market makers on the ask, 3 on the bid. So it looks like this might actually open up a little bit weak. And we just had a print below the bid at 39. So I'm just kind of watching this action right now while it's 39.29 by 39.3, and I'm trying to wait and see a more decisive view of which way is this stock going to break. Is it going to hold 39 and break upwards, or is it going to crack? Well, here we go. We have another market maker in on the ask. Bid loses another. So at this point, I start trying to sell, I think, because I'm starting to say, okay, this is going to be a weak open. Let me just get out, and I could always rebuy it at the bottom of the dip if it's a fake out. Because keep in mind, this daily chart at this point was very overextended. It was 4 up days in a row, basically up from 22 cents to 39.3 where it opened here. So the ask continues to stack up. We now have 6 market makers at 39.3 on the ask. Only 1 market maker on the bid at 39.29, and there's our downtick. And immediately a few market makers jump down to that 39.29 on the ask, and we're down to the 1 bidder at 39.2. So the bid is very thin here. We don't really have a wall of bidders like we have the wall of sellers here. Right now, between 39.21 and 39.3, there's 8 market makers. And we have this string of green prints coming in on the time and sales tape, but the stock's not upticking. And there was some size on those too. There was 100,000 share print to 50,000 share prints. So it's pretty clear right now that this stock is opening very weak. And as it's dipping, what we're basically waiting to see is, okay, well, sure, it just cracked below 39, but the point that really matters is that 36.5, whether it gets green red or not on the day. So the question is the stock going to catch itself before green red? Is it going to stabilize and then have a rebound? Here you can see an example of ARCA dropping down at 38.99 even though the bid is at 39. Sometimes ARCA can do that. Every now and then the market maker box gets locked up like that where the ask is below the best bid. And here you go, you get another one there at 38.8. And since this is happening during panic, I read that as a sign of pretty big weakness. We even had a 37.1 print trickle through in there. But this is an example of why I like level 2, because if you were going off of the chart alone, you would say, oh no, the stock got down to 37.1, it's really looking ugly. But in reality, we still have all these bids between 38 and 38.5 that it has to chew through first. Time and sales tape is still all red prints, even the occasional pink print below the best bid. And it briefly faked me out here, I remember. I thought it might bounce for a second because we had all these prints on the bid side, all these red prints, but the bid wasn't really caving in. So for a little while I thought, hey, this might bounce. And it was right here when the shift in the time and sales tape happened. We suddenly got all these prints on the green side. And I thought, hey, it might be getting ready to bounce. So I had sold all of mine at this point, or most of mine I think, and I actually went to rebuy a little bit, just in case it started to bounce. Because at this point the stock is still held green. Yeah, it opened up a little bit weak. Bid is building back right now. We're now up to 6 market makers between 38.5 and 38.51. But the key difference here, and this is where you need to be able to distinguish, is the fact that this ask is not thinning up. These market makers aren't lifting off the ask. We still have 5 on the ask at 38.52. And despite all these green prints that are coming through, it's not really thinning up. And then suddenly another bidder drops out. And I'm all of a sudden not so convinced that this is going to stay strong. And there we go, we lost another bidder. So I did think for a minute there that it might bounce. The bid did start to build back, but you should be quick to cut your loss and admit you're wrong. And in that case, it just never thinned up on the ask side. The market makers never got out of there. and we're back to down ticking. So I think I had a lot of shares overnight. I had something like 150,000 shares. So I had sold most of them right at the open, but any shares I was still holding or any shares I had bought back, I was trying to sell at this point. And now the sellers are really in control. We're suddenly up to 8 market makers on the best ask at 38.51. Just lost the last 38.5 bid. And you can see some big asks on the ask side also. There was a Citadel ask there for a second. You could see over 100,000 shares. Reason you can't see it anymore again is because Citadel moved its order. Now at 38.41 it will only show the best order at all times. But the stock is still very weak and it's still downtrending. And the number still in the back of my mind is 36.5. So right around now I'm executing on the rest of my shares, I believe. And my thought process was, well, should I short this stock or not? And I still wasn't convinced necessarily that it was going to crack right on the day. Yes, it still looks weak, but it's still a penny and a half from that 36.5 green-red mark. So I wasn't ready to short it quite yet, just because I felt like it was kind of a mid-range short, and I was willing to get my executions a penny cheaper if it looked like I was going to crack later. So we're getting all these pink prints right now below the best bid at 38 and 37.9. It looks like 38 bidders are going to get taken out no problem. Sellers are still dropping down. Maybe we're about to have a little bit of a fight here at 38. 4 bidders at 38, 4 sellers at 38.01. All the prints are still coming in, hitting the bid. Red and pink prints. Lost one of the bidders. Got a couple back. So again, right here might be a spot where I might start to say, hey, is this going to turn? But this time, I learned from last time, and I said I'm going to make the ask start to thin up a little bit first. And so far, despite the fact that those bidders hung in there, we still have those 4 sellers at 38.01. And they're not going anywhere. And suddenly we're down to 3 bidders at 38. Another seller comes in at 38.01. So it's sort of like a tug-of-war, I think is how I've heard Tim Sykes describe it. And all the level 2 I've learned along the way really is just from observing stocks in situations like this and just seeing how the market makers react and how this stacking action acts on the level 2. And this would be a situation where I might say to myself, hey, wow, the bid is soaking up a lot of size. This might be getting ready to turn. But that's not what I'm thinking because the ask is not thinned out at all. That is the one side that really matters, is you need to lose some market makers on that ask side. But that entire time it just stayed stacked up. And eventually cracked it. And we're under 38 now. And this was kind of unique of a panic on NVLX because it was so slow and so drawn out. Normally you'll see them fall apart a lot faster than this. Two big sellers in there, 50,000 shares. And sellers are still just totally in control. And we're getting closer to that all-important green to red mark. A bunch of prints hit the ask there, but market makers on the ask aren't going anywhere. And one thing I want to talk about when it comes to executions, because I know a lot of people ask me how do I get executed and what are some good ways to get out of a stock in a panic situation. Well, you saw all those prints that just splashed the ask there at 37.35, all the green prints that came in. And a lot of times what you'll find is if you're one of the people trying to panic out, like let's say I had a sell order in at 36 cents right now, well below what the best bid is. First of all, you're not going to see that order on the level 2, and second of all, it's going to take a very long time to execute. Now, if I was a broker like Speed Trader, and I can route to NITE, which is a market maker that does a lot of the volume, let's say I put my order on the ask right now at 37.23. That's a situation where some of those green prints probably execute me at 37.23. Because my order will show up on the ask there. See right there, that 37.16 seller selling 30,000 shares through NITE, that's an example of that. If some 37.16 prints came through right now on the ask side, that would probably be filling him and part of what he's trying to sell. And really in a lot of cases you can get fills like that. So anyway, around now, at this point I'm starting to try to short sell. And I believe I was throwing some orders down at about 36. And you know, that 37.06, that might have been me. I think I was trying to short sell some shares on the ask, and I kept moving down to whatever the best ask was. And no, it hasn't snapped red yet, but it's looking like it's going to, because the 37 bid sure isn't helping out. Broke through that like it was nothing. And there's only a few market makers left now between 37 and 36.5. So yeah, at this point I was trying to get short. I had a panic print way down there at 35. I don't consider that to be the stock going green to red officially. I consider it to be green to red once the bidders have fallen out. So once those 36.5 bidders are taken out, that's when I believe that the stock has officially gone green to red. So right there, see how 6,000 shares got executed there on the ask for NITE? That was me. I filled 6,000 shares there short because I had my order on the ask instead of below the best bid. And I'm not going to say one way is always better than the other, but I split up my orders. I'll try to get out lots of different ways. I'll send to different market makers. I'll put some orders on the bid, some orders on the ask, whatever. Just anything I can to try to get executed. And now the stock has officially cracked and gone red on the day. And the rest of the way here, it's pretty much slow drawn panic. I'm kind of running out of things to say, so I don't want to be babbling through the rest of this video. But what you guys should do here is watch the rest of this level 2 action. I film up until the first time the stock turns. So watch the level 2, watch the bidders, watch the sellers, watch the time and sales tape. See if you can identify when the bid is soaking up size, when the bid builds back up and more market makers come in, and most importantly, when that ask starts to thin up. See if you can call it yourself the first time the stock tries to bounce. So I'm going to leave you guys to do that. You can watch through the rest of the video here. It'll be about another 10 minutes of action. But see if you can spot where it turns, because learning to call these on your own is very, very important to being able to trade OTC stocks.